If you truly wanted to be happy, why do you sabotage your life with such terrifying precision? Why do you repeat the same mistakes, even when you understand them? Why do you walk away from what could heal you and return to what destroys you? Fyodor Dostoevsky understood this at the edge of death. He stood in front of a firing squad, seconds away from execution. And what he realized in that moment destroys everything you think you know about yourself. At 28 years old, Dostoevsky was sentenced to death, blindfolded, standing in the cold, waiting for the command. The soldiers raised their rifles, and then, at the last possible moment, everything stopped. The execution was a lie, a psychological experiment designed to break him before sending him to Siberia. One man lost his mind instantly. Dostoevsky didn't. But something inside him fractured permanently. Because when you are absolutely certain you are about to die, you see life with unbearable clarity. Every second becomes infinite. Every moment becomes priceless. And yet, after being given a second life, he did not choose peace. He chose chaos. Debt, addiction, loss, obsessive behavior, emotional extremes. It was as if, even after seeing how precious life was, he could not stop himself from moving toward suffering. And that contradiction became the center of everything he wrote. Dostoevsky realized something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Human beings are not rational. We don't simply move toward pleasure and away from pain. We don't optimize for happiness. We don't even act in our own best interest. Sometimes, we deliberately choose the opposite. In Notes from Underground, he introduces a man who understands himself perfectly and still ruins his own life. The underground man is not confused. He is not ignorant. He knows exactly what would make him happier. He understands logic. He understands consequences. And he does the opposite anyway. Not because he has to,
but because he refuses to be controlled. He says something radical. If human beings were completely rational, if we always chose what is best for us, we would become predictable, mechanical, like machines. And that is something we cannot tolerate. So what do? We rebel. Against logic, against order, against our own well-being. We choose things that harm us, just to prove that we are free. Think about that for a moment. What if your self-destructive patterns are not accidents? What if they are expressions? A way of saying, I am not predictable. I am not controlled. I will choose, even if it destroys me. This is why understanding yourself does not automatically change you. You can know what's wrong. You can analyze your behavior. You can see the pattern clearly, and still repeat it. Because the problem is not always ignorance. Sometimes it's resistance. Dostoevsky pushes this idea even further. He suggests that people don't just tolerate suffering, they are drawn to it. There is something inside us that finds meaning in pain, that feels more alive in struggle than in comfort, but prefers intensity over stability, even if that intensity destroys us. Look around. People who finally get what they wanted and then sabotage it. People who leave healthy relationships for chaotic ones. People who say they want peace but feel empty when they get it. People who create problems where none exist. Why? Because real happiness is quiet. It is stable, predictable, calm. And for many people, that feels like nothing. Suffering, on the other hand, feels real. It sharpens your senses. It gives you something to fight against. It creates urgency, drama, intensity. It makes you feel alive. And sometimes, that feeling becomes addictive. Dostoevsky knew this from experience. He was addicted to gambling, not casually, completely. He would lose everything: money, security, stability, and then borrow more, just to lose again. He understood exactly what he was doing,
and he couldn't stop. The gambler does not play because he expects to win. He plays because of the risk, because of the tension, the possibility, the emotional spike. Winning is temporary, but the cycle is constant. And sometimes losing is the point, because loss confirms something deeper. I knew it. This is who I am. I don't deserve better. It reinforces identity, even if that identity is built on pain. This is where it becomes uncomfortable, because it suggests that suffering is not always something that happens to us. Sometimes we participate in it. Sometimes we maintain it. Sometimes we return to it, even when we have a way out. In Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky explores this through murder, not as a crime story, but as a psychological breakdown. Raskolnikov believes he is above moral law. He convinces himself that certain people have the right to do terrible things if it leads to something greater. So he tests it. He kills. But the real story begins after the crime, because the punishment is not external. It is internal. Raskolnikov cannot escape himself. He becomes fragmented, unstable, paranoid, exhausted. He thought he could act without consequences, but the consequence is consciousness itself. Dostoevsky shows something terrifying. The human mind is not built to live without moral weight. You can justify your actions, you can explain them, you can build theories around them, but you cannot remove their impact. You carry it, and that weight becomes suffering. But here is the deeper problem. Raskolnikov cannot live with what he has done, but he also cannot live without meaning. Because if nothing matters, if there is no purpose, no truth, no moral structure, then everything becomes possible, and everything becomes meaningless. This is where Dostoevsky becomes philosophical. Without meaning, human beings don't become free. They become lost. And in that loss, they either collapse or they create their own suffering just to feel something real.
In The Idiot, he explores the opposite extreme. What happens if someone is truly good? Not morally superior, not performative, but genuinely compassionate. Prince Mishkin sees people clearly. He understands their pain. He forgives instantly. He loves without conditions. And what happens? He is destroyed. Not because he is weak, but because people cannot accept that kind of goodness. Because to accept it, they would have to face themselves. People don't just want to be loved. They want to feel worthy of that love. And when they don't, they reject it, attack it, destroy it. Again, the same pattern. We move away from what could heal us and toward what confirms our internal chaos. Dostoevsky's insight is brutal. Human beings are not driven purely by the desire for happiness. We are driven by something deeper. The need for meaning. The need for freedom. The need to feel real. And sometimes, suffering provides all three. This doesn't mean we consciously want pain. It means that part of us accepts it, creates it, or refuses to leave it, because it fulfills something that comfort cannot. So the question is not, why am I suffering? The question is, what is this suffering giving me? Is it giving you identity, something to hold on to,
A role you understand? Is it giving you control, a familiar pattern, a predictable outcome? Is it protecting you from risk, from vulnerability, from change? Because once you see that, everything shifts. Dostoevsky does not offer easy solutions. He does not say, just choose happiness, because he knows that's not how people work. We are contradictory. We want opposite things at the same time: peace and chaos, love and distance, freedom and safety, meaning and escape. And the tension between those forces is what creates our lives. But he does offer something, not a solution, but a direction. He believed that suffering is not meaningless, that it can transform you if you face it consciously. Not all suffering is chosen,
But some of it is, and recognizing that is the beginning of freedom. Because once you see your patterns, once you understand your contradictions, once you recognize the ways you participate in your own destruction, you gain something rare: choice. Not perfect control, not instant change, but awareness. And awareness is dangerous because it removes your excuses. You can no longer say, I don't know why this keeps happening. You see it clearly, repeatedly, uncomfortably. And in that moment, you stand where Dostoevsky stood, not in front of a firing squad, but in front of a realization that life is not something that just happens to you. It is something you participate in, even in the parts that hurt. And maybe the goal is not to eliminate suffering completely. Maybe that's impossible. Maybe the goal is to understand it, to stop blindly repeating it, to stop confusing it with meaning, to stop using it as identity, and to choose consciously what kind of life you are willing to live. Because in the end, the most dangerous idea Dostoevsky gives us is this: you are not just a victim of your life. You are also its author. And whether you realize it or not, you are writing it every single day.